Hello, everyone. My name is Manolis Sfinarolakis, the Community Manager of Patch of Land, and welcome to the latest webinar on Boston, the city on the hill with a bright future. Today's webinar will feature amazing guests who are experts in their respective real estate fields, who will be talking about Boston, the market of Boston in Massachusetts, and the opportunities that it presents for real estate investors who are interested in investing. Today we'll be starting off with introductions. I'd like to introduce our first guest, Kim Harrington, the Principal Partner and Finance Director of Brownstone Realty Group. And Kim, thank you for joining us, and please introduce yourself to the audience.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Manolis. I appreciate it. Happy to be here. So as Manolis said, my name is Kim Harrington, and I'm a Principal Partner of Brownstone Realty Group. We are a residential redevelopment and new construction business within eastern Massachusetts. We focus primarily on fixing up distressed homes, rehabbing and then reselling them, and we also do a share of new construction development as well.
Wonderful, Kim. Thank you so much for joining us, and we value the experience that you have in the residential market. Our next guest is Collin Lord. He is President of Absolute Value Management. And Collin, thanks for joining us, and please introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you as well, Manolis. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, I'm president of a company called Absolute Value Management, as well as Absolute Value Inc. I've been in Boston since 1986 is when I started my career in appraising. I saw the transitions, the neighborhood transitions over a great period of time, and the redevelopment. And in 2009, there was regulatory changes that affected the way that appraisals were handled. So to reduce sort of pressure from lenders and create a level of independence on the appraisal industry, Absolute Value Management was created to handle the large volume appraisals oversight for lenders. So I get to see huge volume of appraisals, not just in Massachusetts, but throughout the Northeast corridor primarily. But I've appraised and been involved with thousands and thousands of properties in Boston over that time period.
Wow, Collin, thank you for joining us, and that is again amazing experience. You understand value, and it's great to have you on the show, specifically when we speak about the rising prices in Boston. And last but certainly not least, we have Doug Cochrane, the SVP of Underwriting and Acquisitions for Patch of Land. And Doug, pleasure to have you on again, and please introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, hi Manolis. Thanks for having me on again. My name is Doug Cochrane. I am SVP of Underwriting and Acquisitions at Patch of Land. We are a real estate crowdfunding company that deals in debt financing around the country. And I'm excited to be on the program and help talk about the merits of Boston and the New England market.
Absolutely, Doug. And even though you're out in LA, you were also originally a Boston native. You worked there for a very long time, so it must be nice to talk about your home state.
It is. I was in Boston for 25 years. From 1990 till last year, so I got to see the city grow and continue to grow and see it kind of morph from different real estate markets that we've had over the years. So it's kind of nice that we're coming back into Boston now and having that knowledge from my background.
Absolutely. Great. So before we actually go into the Boston report, I think this is a good time to mention to our audience that as we go through this report, we actually encourage you to download the report as well. And the link to do that is going to be www.patchofland.com/Boston report. That's patchofland.com/Boston report. You'll be able to download it, submit your information, and then as we go through this in about a couple minutes, you'll be able to actually enjoy and follow along with us. But before we do that, because we have such amazing guests on the show, I really think it'd be beneficial to the audience for for our guests to kind of give their own opinions of what they're seeing in the Boston market before we talk details in the Boston report. So, from the perspective of residential fix and flip investing, there is no better person to chat about this than Kim Harrington. And Kim, I believe you are on track this year to approximately fix and flip around over 60 properties. So why are you so aggressive? What do you see in this marketplace that is making the opportunity that attractive for you, so that you're doing this many deals in the Boston or the Massachusetts region as a whole?
We've really found the market to be very strong. It's definitely been growing and increasing over the course of this year, and there's still a number of distressed properties available out there for residential redevelopment. So the opportunities are there, and once we're able to really take that property and make it into something that is, a beautiful retail-ready home, there is a great opportunity and a lot of buyers out there who are looking for that type of property. So we do most of our work in eastern Massachusetts, and this year we have found that probably over 40% of our homes are actually being sold before we actually put them on the market. We're able to network and get the property opportunities out there. Folks who are looking for nicely renovated homes love to be able to come in to the market and kind of make some of the finishing decisions on, paint and granite and that sort of thing, cabinets. So it's worked out really well for us, and we'll keep taking advantage of those opportunities.
Absolutely. And the unique element that I really like about your company as well, Brownstone Realty Group, is your ability to joint venture with other investors who may not have the confidence yet to go about a property alone. So I'd love you to give a little bit of an introduction to that as well, because we're all about building wealth and growing communities at Patch of Land, and we also are very keen on education. So please tell us a little bit about your program for joint venture partnerships.
Certainly. I appreciate you asking. So we actually have just brought that on over the course of the last 2 years. And I think because the Boston market is so hot, and because there are so many very well-educated people within the area, we found a lot of folks coming to us, whether they be just newly graduated from college, interested in getting involved in real estate investing on the side, all the way through to seasoned folks that have careers outside of real estate but are interested in getting into the redevelopment or rehabbing game. So we really have a cool opportunity to be able to take them by the hand, bring them in, and get them to really understand how the business works by providing them with a project that we work on with them. So we have a great source of opportunities that are off market that come to us on a very consistent basis, and that's kind of one of the stumbling blocks that new folks trying to break into the rehabbing market struggle with the most, trying to really find those opportunities. So we are able to provide those opportunities and partner with folks to teach them actually how to rehab a house, kind of soup to nuts, running a residential redevelopment business. And it's been a lot of fun within our organization to bring these folks in, give them that experience, and then kind of see them step out on their own and be able to do the same thing.
That is remarkable. I really love how innovative that program is, and again, not only are you making good profits in Boston, but you're changing other people's lives and paving the path for them to follow. So again, amazing opportunity there for people with Brownstone Realty Group. Now I'd like to go to Collin as well. Now, Collin, with your background in appraisals and in real estate in general, you've worked with thousands of these properties over time, whether it's in Boston or other Northeast regions. What are you seeing in the Boston market? Having your finger on the pulse of so many valuations, you could really see how a market changes. So what are you seeing in Boston right now, and why is it presenting a very unique opportunity?
Well, it has the inherent draw, and again, the draw of education, opportunity for businesses, and and employment. First and foremost. It's diverse in terms of where you can live, how you want to live, close to the water, in the city, in a suburb within the city, and so forth. So it really fits a lot of different niches, and every community has a very distinct personality. There's attempts to stereotype it, but it's very hard. You can stereotype communities and towns fairly well, but it lends itself to very international crowd, ethnic crowd, diverse, young, old, whatever the case might be. My take on it's a little bit different in that, I see the renovated homes, I see, this changes in values. I also value homes, though, really from the lender's perspective. So there's two elements. It's sort of like, it's a little bit of a dichotomy in that you have to, the renovations you see or new construction, whatever the case might be, still has to be substantiated, which is one of the key elements in terms of going into a project and trying to think it through. It's one thing to think it's beautiful, fantastic, I want to do it, it makes all the sense in the world, but it also has to be supported. So, there's an element of saying a home is worth what someone's willing to pay, which is true if you can buy with cash, but it's really worth what someone's willing to lend, which is the case for most people, because most people getting in are struggling to cobble together whatever it takes for that down payment. And so, and that in turn is the inherent appeal of a renovated home, right? Because you're not going into a house where all of a sudden you struggle to get that 20% down or whatever the case might be, and now you have to come up with another 10, 15, 20 to do this renovation on yourself. By buying a renovated home, the reason that they're valued so much higher than an unrenovated home is that you're financing in those renovations. So it's much cheaper for someone buying one of those homes. So, but it's it's a tremendous, it's become a tremendous place to visit. I think people are more comfortable just visiting downtown and want to visit downtown. So where I live is a place that's the financial sector, really financial district, Chinatown, and where I see the most people is on the weekends, just coming in and visiting, be it tourists, but usually probably just tourists from neighborhoods around the city, because it's a nice place to walk around. Whereas 10 years ago, probably a little bit less.
Very interesting. You're absolutely right, and that's actually a very big part of our Boston report. Some of the key themes that you've mentioned are absolutely going to be part of that Boston report. Now we'll also end up speaking with Doug in a moment, because I also want to remind everybody again. We'll speak with Doug in a moment regarding the Boston report. But I want to remind everyone again, if you'd like to download it, you'll need to go to patchaland.com/Boston report, so that in a few moments when we do start going through it, you'll be able to take a look at it too. So Doug, one other question for you, from Patch of Land's perspective, we're creating this report, of course, because we also have seen the opportunities. So from Patch of Land, the lender's perspective, why are we so bullish on Boston in your own words?
Well, I think a lot of it comes from my experience in Boston. We're always looking to expand into different markets. A lot of it is generated from referrals and things like that, and that's how we've expanded in the past. But this is the first time that we've actually made a concerted effort to focus on an area that we haven't been in yet. And I think it's a lot of it was my push into the Boston market, just because I've seen a renaissance going on coming out of this recession with Boston. The previous mayor, Menino, had a huge initiative on keeping the workforce, the young workforce, to stay in Boston. There's over 60 universities and colleges in and around Boston. A lot of young, great talent. And in the past, they'd been losing that talent. And I think Mayor Menino was the first one to really make an initiative of trying to keep this this talent here in Boston. They had incentives for a lot of technology companies to come into the Boston area. You have MIT, which is a huge, obviously, technology think tank, and the Kendall Square area. That's all technology, and now that's all spreading out into the Seaport District. And the Seaport District now that's expanded immensely, and due to the availability of the land, as well as the timing of post-recession. And I think that's fueled a lot of the growth in Boston as far as the values going. There's a tremendous amount of building. I was just in Boston where I met Kim, and I've known Collin for years, and we got together, and it's amazing to see just within the last. I moved out to Los Angeles 15 months ago. The amount of building that's going on right now in Boston, high rises, low rises, individual single-family homes, the market's just booming. It's ripe. There's a lot of pent-up demand. It's a very livable city, and people are seeing the value of it, especially in the downtown area. It's a very walkable city. It's America's walking city. So for me, it was an easy choice as to what area did we want to focus on, because I knew what was going on there, and I knew the government was supporting, local government was supporting the building. Now with the new mayor, he's very pro-development, so you're seeing that going across the board, and the landscape is changing in Boston. So it was an easy choice for us to start focusing on Boston.
Wonderful, Doug. Thank you as well for that. It always helps to have an inside man for Boston as well. So this is a great segue. I think we should go through the Boston report and show some of the highlights here to all the members watching. And again, if you would like to actually download the report, all you got to do is go to patchaland.com/Boston report, and then all you got to do is just fill out your information, and you'll be able to download our free white paper, Boston City on the Hill with Rising Opportunity. So since I already did that and I have it ready, I might as well just pop it over here. And one of the areas I'd like to start first is, of course, Section 1, which is talking about demographics, housing stocks, and condo stocks. And one thing that I noticed about this report that was pretty telling about how healthy the actual market is for rentals is this sentence right here. Vacancy rates are remaining near 4%, considerably below the 5.5% rate needed for a balanced rental housing market. So I understand real estate to a pretty well extent, but I never knew that the national average of 5.5% indicates a balanced rental housing market. And so now that this rate in Boston is below 4%, what does that do to rents over time when the vacancy rate is lower than the average balanced rental housing market rate, which means that it's actually healthier than normal? I'll put that to you, Kim. What would that do for rents in a market like this when you have a very low vacancy rate?
Sure, absolutely. What we have seen is that the houses that we do have up for rent, because we do have some of those in our portfolio as well, after we rehab them, we'll hang on to them for rentals. What we see is that they're getting rented very quickly, and that we have a number of viable tenants able to come in, and very solid tenants with good backgrounds, good jobs, so on and so forth. And obviously, the less vacancy rate, the higher you're able to, within reason, have that rental amount each month. So that's helpful as well.
Absolutely, great. And I agree with you. I mean, less supply equals more demand, and hence the prices would increase. So that's obviously a very good sign for the market there. Next, I kind of want to jump to something that Collin said earlier. Collin, you were mentioning how the Boston area in general is very diverse. It attracts young and old, and this demographic file here is very telling of what you just said. The population breakdown is just, interesting. You have the millennial generation, which is basically accounting for about 55% of the population. So, is this what you're seeing on the ground too? Like when you're in Boston, you just must see a plethora of different cultures, a lot of youth. And what is your opinion on the on millennials as far as spending and housing is concerned? Because a lot of people are saying that they just like to rent, they don't like to own, and when are they finally going to start spending their money? So, what are your thoughts about that in general?
Yeah, it's very obvious, and what's interesting, I had to move my office about a month ago, and I took up a sort of a shared office space environment, 8 stories near South Station in Boston, and it's it has a feel of a very sort of high-techy type place. It's set up for that, lounges and so forth, a lot of leisure activities, joint networking type things. And there's over 400 companies in 8 stories, all seem to be high-tech oriented. There's, all types of coding on the walls. I always feel young. I've never felt so old in my life walking around there. It's like everybody is just really young, and so you have to think about the nature, the change in what is driving not just the local economy but the world economy, right? And it's all high tech, and it's whether it's in sort of app development, coding, software, biotech, et cetera, et cetera. It's sort of the young wave of people doing that, and so they then get into the element of the apartment development that took place starting in like 2010 was the first time I ever really observed large-scale apartment building in 30 years, and that was because, quite honestly, it was cheaper to rent than it was to buy. And that took place for a while, and now you've got sort of back to that inverse. The market was always tight on rentals, but now it's sort of it's crossed that threshold where people are starting to think, well, geez, with interest rates being so low, why don't I buy? And if there's a way to get in and buy, it just makes a whole lot more sense. And on top of it, it's a great place for a young person to be because it's now much more attractive. You have the areas of focus, and it could be a variety of places. It could be downtown, it could be on the waterfront, it could be the seaport, it could be in Cambridge, Harvard Square, Kendall Square, Somerville. You've got all these various neighborhoods which are very attractive to someone recently out of school, just starting off in the business world. A lot of community associated with that, and it's a dynamic change in population change. Very oriented towards the younger, and there's certain neighborhoods that are just predominantly very young. South Boston being one of them. The transition there has been incomprehensible in my lifetime, or at least my professional lifetime.
Great. No, it really is nice to see that, and that shows that indeed it looks like the millennial generation is beginning to bloom later. I'm sure you as parents, Doug, I know you have I believe you have children at university. And you're going to notice that the millennial demographic is a very late blooming demographic, but once they bloom, they will become like everybody else and want to buy that house. And this graph is kind of telling of that too. The new housing development graph is showing you how the cost has increased, how the velocity has increased. So Doug, are you seeing this as well? Like you're starting to see a lot of new developments occur in the Boston area due to the lack of housing and the demand of the city in general?
Well, yeah, everything that we've read about here in our research for Boston has shown that there's a real pent-up demand because there hadn't been that great boom of particularly downtown. New buildings, and like I said, when I was just there in the beginning of the summer, there were cranes everywhere. It was pretty spectacular to see. A lot of places doing infill around Fenway Park, that whole area in the Fenway, that's blowing up as well. It was interesting also to see when I visited Kim, she does a lot of work out in the suburbs, and you're seeing a lot of there's a lot of opportunity there because there's a demographic shift, I think, and I think Kim is seeing that as well. That she's buying some great properties, she's getting great deals on these things because the demographics are changing. They're moving from people, empty nesters who are moving into the city, and you're also getting younger families moving out of the cities to get the land and raise the kids and things like that. So again, I just saw a lot of growth when I was there, and everything that I've been reading is supporting that.
Excellent. No, and I agree with you as well. It looks like from that perspective, it is absolutely moving in the direction that you mentioned there. That there's just so much growth occurring, so many new housing units, and just so much pent up demand. And one other area I'd like to hit upon here as well is the actual trend of flipping. If we were to go to page 10, for instance, one thing that in this section, the Boston Now Trends and Snapshots, it shows you really the ROI and how certain organizations like 247wallstreet.com has named Massachusetts #1 for their home flipping overall. And one of the really big numbers here is that home flippers on average earned about $120,000, and this was in 2013. So I'm guessing that this number has only gone up since then, per housing flip. And so let me make that again to Kim on this. Are you seeing year-over-year growth in your profits? Are the profits really this big, like the this website is telling us?
There's definitely opportunities. What we over the last few years is that because Massachusetts is such a hot market for what you call flipping, I like to call redevelopment, but because Boston is such a hot market for that, we've seen a lot of folks getting involved in the market. So the deals are a little tougher to come by these days. That's why the majority of our projects end up actually coming from off-market opportunities, from networking and contacts that we have, folks that are looking to divest homes and don't want to deal with putting it on the retail market. Because most of the time, I think seasoned flippers will get pushed out very often when a house is on the retail market that needs to be rehabbed, because there's newer folks that are willing to pay maybe a little bit more than they probably should be because they want to get in on that action. So that's kind of where I see it going.
Very, very good point. With a healthy market comes healthy competition, and to exacerbate that a little bit, I mean, the foreclosure rate is also low. 1 out of every 287 homes are being foreclosed upon, which is a very low rate comparative to these other markets. So, typically that foreclosure market is where the great deals are coming from. So now that there's even less of those and more competition, you are seeing a very competitive market, I'd imagine.
That's absolutely the case. A lot of our deals are actually coming right at that foreclosure mark. So as opposed to having a bank foreclose on a property and then having to bring that to market, putting it on the MLS, and allowing a number of bidders to come in and put offers in, we're buying a lot actually at auction, right when they're being auctioned off from the banks. And also a very healthy portion of our deals are coming from short sales. So, the kind of pre-foreclosure activity that is definitely still going on.
Excellent. And that is the edge that in your business is critical. It's how do you get to the deals where no one else knows about them first. And so it's definitely a competitive market. And the next section here I think would be great for Collin to answer, because it deals with median prices and the increase in prices. And so, what the research has shown in this Boston report is that back in 2009, the median price was $269,500. Currently, that median price has increased to $455,000. So, is that what you're seeing too, Collin, from your vantage point? Are prices just exploding?
I was going to jump in on the conversation before because I'm actually not. And it's not a negative thing. Actually, I think it's a more positive thing because, I've personally done flips. I actually focus more on condo renovations because it had less structural elements to it. So I was just going in on a dated unit and making it look pretty, really, at the end of the day. So it was easy to manage, less work. We do a very detailed analysis. Every appraisal that we submit has follows a certain pattern, and it measures it really from throughout the year, breaking the year into 3 different segments. And the type of appreciation, to actually measure appreciation, has to be done in certain. You have to really make sure you're measuring like homes to like homes. Now, obviously, you've seen, I've seen appreciation, and it's much greater in certain areas and towns than other ones. I haven't seen anything quite like that. There's a lot of, and I'm not sure, because Dorchester is a massive area, and Dorchester is, and I'm not necessarily disputing it, but Dorchester is so diverse, with so many different neighborhoods, that probably the reason for that is that 2009, a large percentage of the numbers that contributed to that median price were foreclosures. And those foreclosures, a huge part have dried up and gone away. So now you just get truly market sales. But the nice thing about the statistics, the other statistics shown, is just that when I ever did a project, I never assumed property appreciation. I assumed a stable market. It was just about creating equity in the property and measuring that, what that property was going to be worth after relative to what it was prior, and then trying to see if it was worth the investment. And that's a conservative approach to developing, but again, it shows the true benefit in doing a flip or a renovation is that people pay for those renovations because they can finance it in versus paying it out of pocket and the headache. They're not general contractors. They don't necessarily have manage subs. They don't have a list of subcontractors. So I think that's really what should be taken out of it. Certainly, there's been appreciation, but often not to the levels that's published, because it's to make it sort of appropriate and not necessarily in this report, because I know this is accurate. It's more things that are attention grabbing nationally. I just wonder where those statistics come from at times, but it doesn't take away at all from the inherent value in doing a renovation, because that's really always yield returns.
Absolutely, and Doug, I'd like you to jump in too, because I think this is a good segue. Here is specifically in these areas, there's kind of 2 trends for the right types of property here. You have the millennial generation who's okay with living in the urban areas in small multi-unit housing, and then you have the baby boomers who in some cases are downsizing and are interested in living in multi-unit housing in the suburbs. From the perspective of patch of land, what types of properties are we looking for from that perspective? What are we lending on? What are we looking to lend on? Can we do commercial deals as well, not just the small multis, but can we do the larger multi-unit housing from patch of land's perspective?
Yeah, we've actually our bread and butter has always been the 1 to 4s. Residentials, but now we've actually just opened up a commercial division earlier this summer. So we're now looking to. We just did a hotel, Ramada Inn in Arizona. We're looking at another hotel in Indianapolis. We're doing office space, mixed use, multi-unit residential. So we're definitely expanding out into more commercial business, and so far so good. We've had a lot of demand for it over the last year. We've got systems in place now for that, so we're pushing forward with that. So we're actually even looking at a place in East Boston that's a mixed use right now. So it's a new business, a piece of our business that we're looking forward to pursuing more.
Absolutely. Great. I think this could now go towards the next section of our report, which I'm sure everyone will have a little bit of a personal opinion on. I actually, reading this report, this is the first time I heard about it, which shows that I'm just out of the loop on things. But one interesting thing here is that apparently Boston was in the running for the 2024 Summer Olympics, but the city actually said no. They decided to withdraw their bid, and so I'd like to get everyone's opinion on the reason for this, and what are the pros and cons, and just because the potential massive development opportunity that an Olympic event brings, are they still going to be planning to do developments whether the Olympics happens or not? So, Kim, do you have any insight into this at all?
Well, sure. I think as far as the Olympics go, regardless of whether Boston would have decided to move forward or not, there's some great development opportunities, and the charm of the city, the new grads that are choosing to stay, all of these things are really pushing forward that development. So either way, I think that we would have seen this kind of development. And I think it would have been a little bit crazy if we did move forward and actually, win the bid to host. But, I can understand the reasons why the city decided to withdraw their bid.
Absolutely. And Collin, how about yourself? Like, how are you assessing that decision by the city?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the one thing is that there was, this doesn't probably address the millennials, but one of the biggest changes that ever took place in Boston was what's called the Big Dig, and the Big Dig basically, put a corridor, an elevated highway that basically separated the entire city from the waterfront largely. It was a major barrier. I mean, you could get out there, roads went there and so forth, but this area went underground, and now there's 27 acres of parkland. And the city as a whole is now this one beautiful contiguous flow to it. And, from my perspective, there's a lot of fatigue left over from the Big Dig. I mean, that was a disruption that was monumental for 15 plus years. The cost overruns, people questioned it. At the end of the day, it was so transformative and visionary. The type of things the developments that were going to happen as a result of this, in my opinion, are developments that were going to happen regardless. It let the city look at certain sites and locations that were potentially could be changed from an overall planning perspective. And so I think there's that incentive to say, hey, you know what, actually this is maybe better used for this than this now. But, I think, now it's going to take the financial, the independents who are actually driving the Olympic bid, they'll just go off and do it themselves regardless, and you didn't really need the Olympics. I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed because I thought it'd be fun to have everybody in town and all that excitement, but it would have been the construction would have been a disruption. The actual event, just fun. So I don't think it has any impact, and I think there was just a little bit of, I don't know, usual sort of Northeast Bostonian cynicism about motivations behind the scenes, and who's actually going to make money off of this, and was it transparent enough, and that's probably what led to it. So yeah, I don't think it's a big impact. I don't think anybody's losing any sleep over it, except maybe the people who are going to make a lot of money off of it.
Yeah, I mean, the report here specifically points out and excuse me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Is it Widett Circle or Widett Circle?
Widett Circle.
Yep.
That's how it is. Yeah, it was named after after an attorney who basically fought for sort of the rights of some independent, I wouldn't say fishmongers, but sort of a unified group of people to sell their products. And the problem with that is that it's actually, people drive by, millions of people drive by it all the time. I drive endless times. Don't really notice it, but it is a major import-export, primarily export of products, fish, other goods, situated next to the highway. And if it was relocated to another spot, which it probably will be, you need a lot of time to think that through, because right now that's in a good location for these trucks to get out and get it out to the public. So there was going to be a big displacement of businesses, without much voices. They didn't have a strong, there was no lobbyist for them. They were just going to get displaced and relocated, and who knows what the impact would be. It's probably immeasurable, but it'll probably happen just because it's too close to the city, too prime a location. It's been looked at now. It'll happen, but more with time and maybe cooperation among everybody involved.
Great. And as you can see here too, I mean, this little infographic that we put together of these two key areas, Woodette Circle and Columbia Point, they have the certain ideas with the Olympics, but of course there's developers now who are looking to use that vacant land for other useful purposes. So absolutely, there's still going to be some additional opportunities for development.
Yeah, Columbia Point's an interesting one, because that was a place where when I moved into Dorchester just 10 years prior, firemen wouldn't go in. People wouldn't go in. It was too dangerous to go into that. It was large-scale development. It was actually transformed. It's magnificent along the waterfront, but there's other parcels right near there, the former convention center, which is just, and it's so convenient to downtown, yet right on the water. And the harbor's cleaned up, the beaches are nice. It's a nice place it'll be a nice place to live for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And again, just to show the slide that we're showing now, Boston is known as a hub. It's a place where organizations are connected, and also, surrounding towns are being called gateway cities. So that kind of leads us to the next section here, which is the regional dynamics, and just kind of how Boston, as much as people from Boston will never admit it, it's not too the climate there is not that much different from from Yankee territory. But one thing that we could say here is there's specific additional graphs here that I'd like to kind of share with the audience here. Again, continuing to drive the point home, the housing unit starts. It's going to it's going to single families, and it's going to larger multifamilies. You have smaller multifamilies here, but you could just see the amazing increase in the number of housing permits, which shows a very healthy construction and development industry, and so that's a continued increase. And then to also drive the point home on page 20, we also see what's driving that demand, and we did actually mention it. It is just the baby boomers and the millennials. It's just 100%. The greatest demand in the near future will be for multi-unit housing for millennials in the city and multi-unit housing for baby boomers in the suburbs. And so, with that, there's also opportunity for redevelopment as well. And one other thing I wanted to mention too, just to kind of show how hot this market is becoming. The median housing prices, I believe, are also approximately $115,000 higher than the peak, than the market peak in 2005. So Doug, as far as we're concerned at Patch of Land, we obviously see a lot of reason to become lenders in this region. Have we done a few deals in Boston thus far, and are there more on the horizon?
Well, we've done one so far up in Billerica, which is just north of Boston, over in the right by the New Hampshire border. And we've looked at a couple other projects that didn't come to fruition, but we're definitely looking to expand, like I said, into the area. We have another place that we're looking at, a mixed use in East Boston, which I think is another expanding neighborhood in Boston. I've always felt East Boston was going to be the next big neighborhood because of its location, the housing stock, convenience to downtown, and it's ripe for redevelopment. Somerville is another really big one as well. I think that's already taken off like crazy, and they have the T going up into there as well, the subway stop. So yeah, I mean we're out there. We're just we're going to be starting a big marketing boost in the Boston area. I know we have some of our marketing team is going out there next week for some meetings and conferences, and we'll be doing some advertising. So we're definitely pushing to move into the market and help support it.
And if I could jump in quickly, since I work with a lot of lenders and so forth, I know the challenges faced by people looking to do this, and there are products that are out there, like with the ease of what Patch of Land offers. So, it's about making it known to people, because there's a lot of people who want to do it, but once they see the hurdles or the obstacles overcome by traditional financing, it's just the ease would be it's just conducive to that. So I could see a lot more people taking advantage of it.
Absolutely. And one other thing that we'll do too, later in the week, we're also going to be interviewing for another webinar. We're going to be interviewing a gentleman who has all the recent statistics from August. He actually was from. I met the gentleman from Boston AREA, which is a real estate investment association in Boston, which I know that Brownstone Realty is a member of, and he gave this amazing statistical analysis county by county for foreclosures, auctions, listing price, sales prices. So as you mentioned, Doug, and as you mentioned, Collin, all these different areas like Somerville and et cetera are just exploding. They're just getting a lot of traction, and it's looking like a really great market for investing. And again, just a quick comment on gateway cities. I mean, we all know the expensive neighborhoods like Cambridge, but what are some other cities that are may not be Cambridge, but they're kind of like these up and coming neighborhoods? Like I believe our report mentions like Davis and Porter Square. Can someone comment on those areas? Are those areas now becoming a lot more developed as well?
Yeah, I mean, I can step in. I mean, Davis and Porter are all in Cambridge, and what I saw were it sort of as in the 80s and actually through the 90s, because we went through a horrible downturn in the market in the late 80s. There was this western expansion, which led to a lot of development, and the reason for that is the big companies, the big employers back then, the original computer age, and when one of the belts on your map there, which is actually Route 128 and later 495, was the location of large employers in the computer. The dot-com bubble in the late 90s, early 2000s, and so forth also did that, but started pulling it back in. And then, of late, I think you have more of the focus has been a little bit closer to Boston, but you still have these other places. So depending on who it is, you have Eastern Massachusetts is still made up of a lot of mill towns, and a lot of developments that you see, let's say in Manhattan loft type developments, converted warehouses, converted mill buildings, tremendous opportunities at low prices, and it just takes a few people starting to move in. There's some of the big cities. Doug pointed out, even close in town, East Boston, unbelievable. I mean, you're like a minute from the airport. You can have magnificent views, great public transportation, up to Lynn, north to Lawrence and Lowell, south to Fall River, New Bedford, Brockton, places that are really quite affordable, and takes a little vision. Wouldn't necessarily call it urban pioneering anymore, but again, for people who want to get in inexpensively, there's still plenty of places to go, and you can still get into, whether you're in the city or you're working in the suburbs, great opportunities.
Wonderful. So we've basically gone through the whole report. I mean, there's just so much value in that. Again, I just want to tell everybody that if you do want to see the report again, that's patchofland.com/Boston report. And I'd like us to kind of just talk about a little bit, some last words from each of us, just to kind of like state our cases again for Boston. We've gone through a lot today. We've been on the air for nearly an hour now, so it's been an action-packed show. So I guess for the parting words, Kim, if you would just give us your parting words, what are your predictions for the Boston market, and what are your plans for the future? How do you continue to enjoy the prosperity that you're seeing across the board?
Absolutely. So I think we're looking forward to a very strong fall for the market, and I think that what we're going to be seeing, because Boston is such a hot market, we'll be seeing more and more folks interested in kind of getting involved in that redevelopment and that rehabbing space. And the most important aspect of it, in my opinion, is making sure that you're able to move quickly on those opportunities when they arise. And so, just a quick plug for a patch of land. The speed of which you're able to pull that funding together for investors like us is absolutely fantastic. And I think that it's something that folks need to consider and be ready for, because you always need to move quickly to be able to get those good opportunities, and patch of land is a great opportunity for that funding.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Kim, very much for that. And again, we look forward to partnering with you as well. From helping you achieve your goals to helping your joint venture partners achieve theirs as well. So I mean, kudos again to what Brownstone Realty Group is doing for yourselves and for others. Great. And Collin, same question to you. Where do you see the future headed for yourself, for your initiatives, and for Boston as a whole? What do you, if you were a genie or a fortune teller, what would you see?
I see it actually becoming one of the truly great cities of the world, and not just in the eyes of the people who live there. And some of that is because of there are two current buildings going up that are equal in size to two of the highest skyscrapers in the city. Both are condos. Both are massively high-valued properties, attracting sort of the international clientele. You've got a number of other ones on the books, other commercial development going on, and that's all a recognition of everybody who's moving in there, the companies that are in there, the location, the access to some very smart minds at all the universities. And so it seems to have a momentum going right now that's likely unstoppable. The city's just become, again, over the past 5 to 8 years, just a beautiful place. It really is, from in all ends, and they just keep tweaking every little spot of it. So I think it's a very bright future.
Great. Yep, and I'm pretty sure we all agree as well. It's really a great city. Living in Connecticut, the only way that I brag about the state is that I say that I'm close to Boston and New York. So, I got to say it is a great city. And Doug, I'll give you the last word as well. A little bit about the future of Boston and the future of our initiatives at Patch of Land as well. So you can tell the audience, and we can sign off for the evening.
Sure. Boston has a lot of fundamentals, economic fundamentals that help support everything that's happening in the city. Even during the recession, on the downturn, it didn't get affected as hard as a lot of other cities around the country because they do have a very strong financial basis. You have the universities. As I talked about earlier, you've got a very proactive state government, and certainly in Boston, the city, the mayor and his initiatives. They're bringing a lot of technology, biotech. They're young companies. They're thriving. The real estate market and real estate companies are there. I think even just having the Olympics consider the city was a major coup. It brought a focus, and it brought an international focus to Boston. It's always had an international flavor to it, probably more so than any other city in the country. And again, for Patch of Land, we're very pro-Boston, and we're, like I said, we're going to be doing a major push into the Boston area, and this is the start of it. So hopefully people will be seeing a lot more of us there and helping in the continued growth of the city.
Excellent, Doug. Thank you. Thank you for that great explanation. And again, I absolutely agree with you. You know, one thing that I'd like to also mention to the viewers of this, we actually are, as you mentioned earlier, Doug, we are heading into Boston on September 9th. We will have our Chief Marketing Officer out of Pia D'Erico, Marketing Manager Marco Rivera, and myself will be at Coalition Boston on September 9th. We'd love for, of course, Kim and Collin, if you both can make it September 9th, we'd love to have you there, free food and drinks, so we can all celebrate in person. But it'll be a great event, and for those watching, just attend from 6 to 9 p.m. At Coalition Boston in downtown Boston on September 9th. So again, thank you all for watching this this version of our webinar series for real estate crowdfunding, but specifically for Boston real estate investing. We wish you all a wonderful night and a prosperous investing career, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.